Sometimes life creates situations where you find yourself wondering why someone already bound by vows and responsibilities is drawn toward another presence. It may not be about you, and it may not even be about love. It's often about what is missing inside them. To understand this, you have to look deeper, beyond the surface gestures, into the reasons that drive a soul to seek what it feels is absent. There are times when a man, bound by the structure of his commitments, feels a heaviness within that no one around him seems to notice. The world may see him as stable, strong, and secure, but beneath that surface lies an inner silence that aches to be heard. He may laugh at the dinner table, he may fulfill his duties, he may play the role he is expected to play, yet inside there is a hunger for something different, something softer, something more affirming, something that reminds him he is more than his responsibilities. This is when he begins to seek an emotional escape. It isn't always about replacing what he already has, nor is it necessarily about falling in love with another. It is about finding a moment of release, a place where his inner world feels acknowledged instead of dismissed. He longs for a voice that listens without judgment, a pair of eyes that see beyond the surface of his role, and a presence that reminds him that his emotions are valid. When the pressures of life become relentless, when the conversations at home are reduced to routine exchanges, he starts craving the depth of connection that stirs something inside him. In these moments, it isn't passion that he searches for first, it is understanding. He wants to feel that his thoughts matter, that his feelings are not invisible, and that someone recognizes the quiet battles he carries. Sometimes the emotional escape he seeks is nothing more than a simple exchange of words that feel sincere. A gentle laugh shared, a soft acknowledgement of his struggles, or the comfort of being told that his existence is valued outside of his duties. These small interactions become intoxicating because they awaken something he believed had been silenced. For him, it is not about betrayal in the physical sense. It is about survival in the emotional sense. He seeks shelter from the storms within his own mind, and he finds it in the unexpected warmth of another presence. This escape becomes a doorway, a temporary refuge from the weight of expectations. In that space, he is not the provider, not the husband, not the father. He is simply a human being, fragile and yearning for comfort. The emotional void he feels is not always caused by neglect or rejection at home. Sometimes it is the result of his own inability to express what he needs. And so, rather than confront that silence, he reaches outward, searching for the missing piece in someone else's words, attention, or embrace. But the truth remains clear. This escape is never truly about the other person. It is about himself. It is about soothing the parts of his soul that feel unrecognized. It is about quieting the noise of responsibility with the melody of understanding. And though the outside world may not see it, every conversation, every shared moment, every look that carries warmth becomes his secret medicine, a temporary healing for wounds no one else knows he carries. There is a longing that grows quietly within a man when what he desires most no longer finds a place in his life. It is not always about grand gestures, nor is it always about physical intimacy. Sometimes it is about the subtle moments of closeness, the spark in a glance, the softness of a touch, or the feeling of being desired with the same intensity he once knew. When that warmth begins to fade, he carries an emptiness that words cannot quite fill. He goes about his days as though nothing has changed, but deep down, he feels the absence of passion that once made him feel alive. This emptiness becomes a constant reminder of what is missing, and it drives him to search for it elsewhere. Unmet desires are not just about the body, but about the spirit. They are about wanting to be looked at with admiration, wanting to be embraced with genuine longing, wanting to feel the kind of fire that makes life vibrant. When these desires are unmet, they slowly carve out a hollow space in his heart. At first, he may ignore it, convincing himself that routine is enough, that responsibilities are reason enough to let that part of him sleep. But desire is not something that sleeps forever. It stirs. It begins to demand attention. And when it is not answered at home, he begins to notice it in places he never expected. A conversation that lingers longer than usual, a smile that carries warmth, a fleeting moment of eye contact that awakens something inside him. Suddenly, these small interactions take on a deeper meaning. He begins to crave the energy that makes him feel wanted, and this craving becomes the fuel for his search. For him, it is not simply about attraction, it is about validation. It is about knowing that someone still sees him as exciting, as magnetic, as a man worth desiring. The more this feeling grows, the more it highlights the gap he feels in his own world. These unmet desires create a restlessness that cannot be soothed by logic. He may know the risks, he may understand the complications, but the hunger within does not listen to reason. It pushes him toward the pursuit of moments that reignite his spirit, even if only for a short time. And in those moments, he feels alive again. He feels like the man he once believed himself to be, the one who could command attention, inspire passion, and awaken desire. Yet beneath it all lies a truth that cannot be ignored. This search is not about another person, but about his own need to feel whole again. The desire he seeks outside is the echo of what he has lost within his own life. It is not a rejection of what he has, but a reflection of what he feels is missing. And so he searches not because he is unfaithful at heart, but because the fire of his unmet desires has grown too strong to remain hidden. There comes a point when the rhythm of life becomes predictable, when every day follows the same lines, and the spark of unpredictability fades away. For a man bound by responsibility, routine becomes both his anchor and his prison. He wakes, he works, he provides, he fulfills the roles placed upon him. But inside there is a restless spirit that quietly longs for something different. Not necessarily something better, but something new, something fresh, something that reminds him that life still has surprises waiting to be discovered. This is when he begins to crave adventure and novelty, not as an act of betrayal, but as an attempt to break free from the monotony that has slowly dulled his soul. The thrill of adventure is not always about grand escapes or reckless choices. Sometimes it is found in the simplest of exchanges, the unfamiliar smile that lingers, the curiosity of a new conversation, the spark that arises when someone sees him in a way that feels unpracticed and unrehearsed. These small encounters carry a kind of electricity, and that electricity becomes addictive. It reminds him that there are still moments in life capable of making his heart race, moments that feel unscripted and alive. Novelty has a way of awakening hidden parts of him, the parts that have been buried beneath years of repetition. It is not that he has stopped appreciating what he already has, but the familiarity of it has made it lose its edge. He knows what to expect, he knows the answers before the questions are spoken, and in that certainty, the mystery has faded. The novelty of someone new, or simply a new kind of energy, breathes life back into the corners of him that crave unpredictability. It is not always about passion in the physical sense. It is about the adventure of rediscovering emotions he thought he had left behind. The man who seeks novelty is not always searching for permanence. Sometimes he is searching for a momentary escape, a reminder that he is not trapped inside the walls of routine forever. The way a new presence makes him feel can be intoxicating, not because it offers him a future, but because it offers him an experience, a spark that cuts through the fog of predictability. In those moments, he does not feel like a man bound by obligations. He feels like someone who still has the freedom to choose, to explore, to taste the excitement of life beyond the ordinary. But deep beneath the thrill lies a quiet truth. The adventure he seeks is not truly about another person. It is about himself. It is about reclaiming the part of his spirit that refuses to be caged by monotony. It is about proving to himself that he can still feel alive, still feel wonder, still experience the kind of excitement that once defined his younger years. And so he chases adventure, not out of disloyalty, but out of a longing to remember that life is more than duty. It is also the thrill of discovery. There is a quiet hunger within a man to feel seen, to feel admired, to know that he is still desirable in the eyes of someone else. Life has a way of reducing him to his roles, his responsibilities, his duties. Over time, he is no longer complimented for his charm, no longer praised for his presence, no longer reminded that he carries a spark worth noticing. He becomes accustomed to being needed, but rarely to being wanted. And so he begins to seek what his ego craves, the thrill of being valued for who he is, not just for what he provides. The look of admiration in another's eyes, the acknowledgement of his strength, the subtle gestures that remind him he is attractive, these are the things that awaken his spirit. It is not always about love, nor is it about replacing what he already has. It is about reassurance, the validation that he is still a man who can inspire desire, attention, and respect. This sense of importance becomes addictive because it touches the very core of his identity. An ego boost does not demand permanence, it often thrives in fleeting moments. A smile that lingers, a compliment that feels genuine, a conversation that makes him feel interesting again. These are enough to feed the hunger he has carried silently. What he seeks is not necessarily another person, but the reflection of himself he rediscovers in their presence. In that reflection, he sees vitality, he sees relevance, he sees the man he still longs to be. And so the pursuit of an ego boost becomes less about the outside world and more about healing the cracks within his own sense of worth. There are moments when life feels like a series of repeated steps. Wake up, fulfill obligations, return home, repeat. In that cycle, conversations lose their depth and interactions become centered around tasks, schedules, and responsibilities. For a man, this can create an invisible loneliness, the kind that cannot be cured by presence alone. He may be surrounded by family, yet still feel unheard, still feel unseen, still crave a companionship that goes beyond routine. What he seeks is not simply company, but connection. He longs for someone who will listen without rushing, someone who will understand without dismissing, someone who can make him feel that his words carry weight. It is not about escaping love. It is about finding a kind of closeness that feels alive, refreshing, and genuine. A simple conversation that flows effortlessly, a shared silence that feels comforting rather than empty, a sense of being understood without having to explain too much. These become treasures he yearns for. This search for companionship beyond routine is often subtle. It does not always involve dramatic gestures or obvious confessions. Instead, it thrives in moments where laughter feels easy, where stories can be shared without judgment, where he can set aside the masks of duty and simply exist as himself. That presence becomes a reminder that life holds more than schedules, that connection is not limited to roles, and that his soul can still be nourished by authentic company. In seeking such companionship, he is not necessarily looking for escape, but for renewal, for a reminder that being with someone can feel like freedom rather than obligation. Deep within, there are spaces that no achievement, no possession, and sometimes no relationship seems to fill. These are the inner voids a man carries quietly, often without anyone noticing. He may appear complete on the outside, steady in his role, consistent in his duties, yet there are moments when he feels a hollowness that lingers no matter how much he tries to silence it. It is not always about what he lacks in his surroundings. It is about what he lacks within himself. And so he reaches outward, searching for someone or something to pour into the emptiness he struggles to face. The void might come from unspoken insecurities, from dreams that never found life, from emotions he was taught to hide, or from a sense of being unseen in the ways that matter most. When he finds someone who seems to notice those unseen parts of him, it feels like a balm. Their words, their presence, their energy becomes a temporary cure, a way to cover the emptiness that echoes inside. For a moment, he feels whole again. For a moment, the ache softens. But the truth is that no one outside of him can fully fill what is missing within. What he seeks in others is often a reflection of the healing he has not yet given himself. Still, the pursuit continues because even temporary relief feels better than silence. In these moments, it is less about the other person and more about his own need for peace. He seeks to fill the void not because he is ungrateful, but because being human means hungering for completion even when the answers lie within rather than beyond. In the end, what a man seeks outside of his commitments is rarely about another person. It is about himself. Each glance, each conversation, each connection is only a reflection of the pieces he feels are missing within. Sometimes it is the hunger for comfort, sometimes the ache of unmet desires, sometimes the thrill of novelty, the reassurance of being admired, the longing for companionship, or the attempt to quiet the emptiness that lingers in silence. All of it points back to the same truth. His search is not about replacing love, but about repairing fragments of his own soul. And while he may reach outward, what he truly seeks has always been within.